Hello and a very good evening. You're watching the news at 6 on Rajya Sabha television with me, Frank Pereira. Here are the headlines. Congress leads opposition uproar in the Rajya Sabha, seeks discussions on Goa governor and Aadhaar, questions delay in filling up vacancies in statutory commissions. Four bills aimed at rolling out the much-awaited goods and services tax are tabled in the Lok Sabha. Opposition leaders raise objections, say they weren't given enough time to study the legislation. MPs raise concern over the latest racial attack on an Indian in Australia, seek Prime Minister Modi's intervention to ensure safety of Indians down under. And social welfare scheme benefits cannot be denied to those without Aadhaar cards, rules Supreme Court refuses to grant early hearing in the Aadhaar case. Well, in the Rajya Sabha today, a united opposition cornered the government to a delay in filling up of vacancies in statutory commissions. It also accused the government of weakening constitutional bodies. With the government refusing all charges, the protests led to several adjournments in the pre-lunch session. As a report.
Opposition parties upping the ante against the government over vacancies in statutory commissions for minorities, SCs, STs and OBCs. Raising the issue through a zero-hour mention, Congress's Narendra Budania said that the post of chairman and all 5 members in the National Commission for Minorities are lying vacant.
आज इतना बड़े वर्ग उसके आयोग में कोई नहीं होना, ये इस बात का संदेश देता है। एक शंका सामने आती है। ये शंका सामने आती है कि इन प्रकार की संस्थाओं को तहस-नहस करके तोड़ना चाहते हैं। मेरे दिल में है, मेरे मन में है कि कहीं जो बीजेपी की सरकार है, वो कि देश में कोई ऐसा संदेश तो देना नहीं चाहती है। यदि देना चाहती है तो ये गलत है। ये गलत है। मैं सरकार से जानना चाहता हूं, मैं सरकार से पूछना चाहता हूं कि आप जो है इस प्रकार के जो खाली पद हैं उनको आप भरने का इरादा रखते हैं कि नहीं रखते हैं?
Minority Affairs Minister Mukhtar Abbas Naqvi assured the House that vacancies will be filled up soon and the commission will be reconstituted by including representatives of the Jain community.
और उनका ये भी था कि जैन समाज के प्रतिनिधियों के बिना पूरे माइनॉरिटी कमीशन का गठन न हो, इसको लेकर के काफी उनका प्रतिनिधिमंडल मिला। उस संबंध में अभी कैबिनेट ने डिसीजन किया है, हमें पार्लियामेंट में लाना पड़ेगा। और इसलिए हम आपको विश्वास दिलाते हैं कि माइनॉरिटी कमीशन का गठन, उसका मेंबर, उनके चेयरमैन का गठन शीघ्र होगा, वो प्रक्रिया चलेगी।
But Naqvi's assurance failed to calm the opposition benches as members alleged that the government failed to pay heed to all statutory commissions and took a jibe at the government's catchphrase of minimum government, maximum governance.
This government came into office promising minimum government, maximum governance. Yeah. Now none of these 4 commissions, none of these 4 commissions, statutory commissions are working. They have not been constituted. Neither Minorities Commission, SC, ST
No,
commission,
he explained the rationale.
Commission. What is the explanation, sir?
Okay.
As the protests escalated, zero-hour and question hour were disrupted. Congress, JDU, CPIM, SP and BSP members banded together and trooped into the well of the House.
House is adjourned for 10 minutes.
With no respite visible, the chair adjourned the House till 2 p.m.
House is adjourned till 2 p.m.
Kriti Mishra's report for Rajya Sabha TV.
Well, on Monday, the Congress insisted on expeditiously taking up its substantive motion on the conduct of the governor of Goa in the upper house. The Congress also requested the chair to fix a discussion on Aadhaar-based biometric identification. The chair asserted that established procedures would be followed to allow the discussions.
Congress MP Digvijay Singh urged the chair for a prompt discussion on his substantive motion under Rule 168 on the conduct of the Governor of Goa. He reminded the ruling dispensation that the UPA government had accepted the demand for a debate by then Leader of Opposition Arun Jaitley on the conduct of the Bihar Governor.
It is the responsibility of your chair, in consultation maybe with the Leader of the House, to fix up a date and time for this. Sir, it is at your recommendation and the acceptance of the MOS Parliamentary Affairs that I was asked to submit a substantive motion. Now I am being asked to change the substantive motion to a short duration discussion, sir, where I can't raise issues or where illegality has been committed. It's a denial of my rights, sir. I will not accept it.
Congress's Jairam Ramesh also asserted that discussion on Aadhaar is also pending.
Sir, what is the fate of my notice under Article 176, Rule 176, for a short duration discussion on Aadhaar, which was listed and which then was delisted on various considerations.
Okay.
So I want to know what is the fate of that. Are we going to have the discussion?
Deputy Chairman PJ Kurian said that time and date for a discussion after a substantive motion is admitted is to be decided in consultation with the Leader of the House. He also said that discussion on Aadhaar is listed for March 29th.
Chairman may
aimed at rolling out the much-awaited goods and services tax and usher in landmark tax reforms in the country were tabled in the Lok Sabha on Monday by Finance Minister Arun Jaitley. However, the opposition parties objected to it, saying that the introduction of these measures was not listed in today's agenda for the House.
Madam, I seek move for leave to introduce a bill to make a provision for the levy of...
Finance Minister Arun Jaitley on Monday introduced 4 bills on the goods and services tax in Lok Sabha, paving the way for the government to launch the landmark tax reform. He introduced the Central GST Bill, Integrated GST Bill, Union Territory GST Bill and the GST Compensation to States Bill.
Madam, the Compensation Bill.
Yes.
I seek move for leave to introduce a bill to provide for compensation to the states for loss of revenue arising on account of implementation of the Goods and Services Tax in pursuance of the provisions of the Constitution 101st Amendment Act 2016.
But many opposition members opposed the introduction of the bills, alleging that they were not given enough time to study the proposed legislation. Raising objections, Congress leader K.C. Venugopal said the introduction of these bills was not listed in today's agenda and asserted that parliamentary procedures must be followed while dealing with important issues.
As per Rule 72, notice to oppose introduction of bills shall be addressed to the Secretary General and given by 10 hours on the day on which the motion to leave the introduction. There is a right of the members to give objection to each and every bill introduced by the government.
The centre expects to get Parliament's nod for the 4 bills in the current session scheduled to end on April 12th. It is estimated that rolling out of the GST can add up to 2% to India's economic growth. The government has proposed to launch GST from July 1st. Ravindra Shoran's report for Rajya Sabha TV.
Meanwhile, the centre has condemned the recent racial attacks on Indians living abroad. The External Affairs Ministry is also in constant touch with the victims. The issue was raised in Lok Sabha on Monday.
The government has strongly condemned the racial attacks on Indians living abroad, also giving an assurance that it will ensure the safety of all non-resident Indians. Parliamentary Affairs Minister Anant Kumar said this in Lok Sabha on Monday.
It's a matter of very serious concern.
Yes.
Our Honorable Minister for External Affairs, Srimati Sushma Swaraj, he is in regular touch with all these countries wherever such incidents are happening at the highest diplomatic level, and she is also directly in contact with the victims and their families for rushing of immediate relief, help and assistance. It is unfortunate that these things are happening, and we are with our citizens, we are with our Indians everywhere in the world, and we will leave no stone unturned.
During 0 hour, Congress MP K.C. Venugopal had raised the issue of recent attacks on Indians, alleging the government was not taking them seriously.
Racial attacks against Indians are increasing day by day across the world. But some latest reports, it is very sad to hear these stories repeatedly. Last week I also raised the issue. Honorable Anand, I'm thanks to Anand Kumar. He replied also. But after that, there is no follow-up action. Whether the External Affairs Ministry has taken any action, Honorable External Affairs Minister is not here. But it's a very serious incident. Day by day, this type of incident is increasing, madam. How can Indian be safe in abroad? Therefore, government should come forward. The Prime Minister should also intervene in this matter.
Without any provocation, there were racial abuse on Indian citizen Lee Max Joy, and also he was racially assaulted. And madam, please, this is a very important issue for all the Indians living in Australia. Here, this is happening day by day.
A native of Kerala was attacked in Australia's Hobart on Sunday. The government said it was keeping a close watch on the case. Ravindra Sharon's report for Rajya Sabha TV.
Meanwhile, the issue of the unruly Shiv Sena MP Ravinder Gawde, who has been banned by all major airlines, resonated in the parliament on a Monday. The Shiv Sena demanded a revocation of the ban, saying that banning an MP from travelling when the House is in session is unfair. Civil Aviation Minister, though, said that rules are the same for everyone.
The issue of Shiv Sena MP Ravinder Gawde being banned from flying most major airlines after he assaulted an Air India official on Thursday was raised in Lok Sabha on Monday. Defending Gaikwad, Shiv Sena MP Anand Rao Adsul demanded revocation of the ban, adding that TV show host Kapil Sharma wasn't banned after a drunken brawl on board a flight.
एक बड़ा आर्टिस्ट कपिल शर्मा दिल्ली से ऑस्ट्रेलिया जा रहा था, दारू पी के हंगामा किया, कर्मचारी को मार दिया, खाली उसकी इंक्वायरी चल रही है, लेकिन उसके ऊपर कोई पाबंदी नहीं लगाई। और एमपी को ऐसा, लेकिन एमपी जो रिप्रेजेंट करता है, देश को रिप्रेजेंट करता है, अपने चुनाव क्षेत्र को रिप्रेजेंट करता है, सेशन चालू है और ऐसे हालत में उसको पाबंदी लगाना, वो भी सभी एयरलाइंस ने, तो सरकार ने ये सीरियसली देखना चाहिए। सिविल एविएशन मिनिस्टर यहाँ बैठे, मैं उनको आपके तरफ से उनको रिक्वेस्ट करता हूँ, आप इसके ऊपर बयान दें।
The government, however, turned down his request. Civil Aviation Minister Ashok Gajapati Raju said rules are the same for everyone and the safety of airlines is topmost priority.
A member of parliament also is a passenger. Now that the honorable MP has raised it, we can't have unequal treatment of people of different classes, but we would need to interact with people, take them along, keeping safety in mind.
Unhappy with the minister's response, Shiv Sena MPs protested in the House. Gaikwad himself has not appeared in the House since the incident. Shiv Sena, meanwhile, has called for a bandh in Gaikwad's constituency in Maharashtra in a show of support. This, even as his behavior failed to draw any support from fellow politicians.
He has refused to show any regrets, is only showing his high-handedness, and it is too late now for him, even if he wants to apologize now. He has been absconding from law, he is concealing himself, and his wife, has with all the affection for her erring husband, may come forward and try to support him. So is Uddhav Thackeray or some MPs from Shiv Sena, but it is inconsequential.
पहली बात यह है कि जो चुने हुए प्रतिनिधि हैं, उनका व्यवहार जो है वो शालीनता का होना चाहिए, उद्दंडता का नहीं होना चाहिए। ये बात बहुत साफ है और ये बात बहुत स्पष्ट है, और इस चीज के उसके अलावा अगर कोई गलती हुई है तो उस गलती को जस्टिफाई करने के लिए और ज्यादा गलतियां नहीं की जानी चाहिए।
Gaikwad being put on the no-fly list is probably the first such action in Indian history for unruly behavior aboard an aircraft. Panchanan Mishra's report for Rajya Sabha TV.
Moving on to other news now, the Supreme Court on Monday clarified that Aadhaar cards cannot be made mandatory by the government for extending benefits to social welfare schemes. But the Apex Court also added that it cannot stop the government from linking the 12-digit identification number to the opening of bank accounts or filing of tax returns. It also ordered to constitute a 7-judge bench that would authoritatively decide a batch of petitions challenging the Aadhaar scheme on grounds including that it infringes on the right to privacy of citizens. The Supreme Court said that it cannot stop the government from doing so, but reiterated its earlier order in August 2015 that Aadhaar cannot be mandatory for people to derive benefits under official welfare schemes. 2 months after that order, the court had removed the restriction and allowed the voluntary use of Aadhaar cards in schemes. Last week, responding to opposition criticism in Parliament, Finance Minister Arun Jaitley had said that Aadhaar may soon become the only card required to identify a person, replacing voter IDs and PAN.
We are not making it mandatory. Nobody will be deprived of benefits only on the ground that he doesn't have Aadhaar. We are also making provision to give Aadhaar. A. B. We are also, in case there is no facility immediately, his application itself is good enough.
Here's a roundup of the news from across the country in Nationwide. The Kerala government has decided to order a judicial probe into the allegations against former Minister A.K. Sasidharan. This after Sasidharan met Chief Minister Pinarayi Vijayan and asked for a probe into an audio tape recording in which he allegedly misbehaves with a woman. Sasidharan quit his ministerial post on Sunday after the tape was aired on a regional channel. He claimed innocence and said he was not afraid of a probe. Well, just days into summer, India is staring at a monsoon deficit. According to SkyMet, monsoon in 2017 is likely to remain below normal at 95% with an average of 887 mm for the 4-month period of June to September. This may cause trouble for farmers as the Kharif crop depends heavily on the performance of the southwest monsoon. Rains are expected to hit the southern tip of Kerala by June 1st. A massive fire broke out in Srinagar's Chinnar Bagh area on Monday, gutting several houses. Around 6 fire tenders were rushed to the spot to douse the flames and was brought under control. According to the fire and emergency services, around 8 to 10 houses were engulfed by the fire. 2 firemen were also injured in the process. More than 100 Indian fishermen were arrested and 19 of their boats were seized on Sunday by Pakistan for allegedly fishing in their territorial waters. Pakistan Maritime Security Agency arrested the fishermen and seized the boats off Jahua coast in Kutch district. The PMSA spokesperson confirmed that the fishermen and their boats had been handed over to the local police for further action. Well, moving on to some international news now. Russian opposition leader Alexei Navalny has been fined $350 for organizing and leading anti-government protests in the country on Sunday. Navalny called for protests spread over 80 cities against alleged corruption by Prime Minister Dmitry Medvedev. Over 1,000 protesters were detained by the police. Here's more.
A day after being detained for leading one of the biggest anti-government protests in Moscow, Russian opposition leader Alexei Navalny appeared in court on Monday. An upbeat and defiant Navalny said Russian Prime Minister Dmitry Medvedev should be summoned by the court for questioning regarding Sunday's protests. He argued that the Prime Minister's corrupt activities have forced people to come to the streets. On Sunday, more than 60,000 Russians took part in over 80 rallies across Russia, including capital Moscow, in the biggest anti-government protests since 2011-2012. The protests were called by opposition leader Navalny after reports claiming that Russian Prime Minister Medvedev amassed huge wealth, including mansions, yachts and vineyards that far outstrip his official salary, were published.
Уже еще раз говорю, в рамках Конституции было сказано, соответственно, он должен понести соответствующее наказание. Какое оно будет выдвигать, конечно же, судебная инстанция.
Но я боюсь, что этого будет недостаточно. Я боюсь, что им нужно, чтобы по башке как следует дали, вот тогда, может быть, до них дойдет. Но пока народ безмолвствует.
Meanwhile, the Kremlin has dismissed Sunday's protests as mere provocation by Navalny. Nearly 12 hours after reports of protests emerged, the US strongly condemned the detention of protesters. The European Union too called for immediate release of the detained protesters. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Here's a roundup of the other international news and global buzz. As many as 8 people are feared dead and 2 are in critical condition after they were caught in an avalanche at a ski resort in Japan. About 70 people, including students and teachers from several schools, were reportedly in the Nasu area when the incident took place. Bad weather and heavy snowfall have hampered rescue operations. More than 3,500 Australian residents have been evacuated as a cyclone carrying winds up to 240 kilometers per hour moves towards the Queensland coast. Cyclone Debbie is expected to intensify into a Category 4 system before it arrives early the next day. The Queensland Premier has said that the storm would rival the devastating cyclone Yasi in 2011, which destroyed homes, shredded crops and devastated island resorts. German Chancellor Angela Merkel's Conservative Party easily won an election in western Saarland state. The election was the first of 3 regional votes ahead of the September 24th federal vote in which Merkel prepares to seek a 4th term. The dip in support for the Social Democrats, however, was a setback in its first electoral test under new leader Martin Schulz, who has re-energized the centre-left party with a promise to tackle inequality that is resonating with many voters nationally. The Maldives opposition began impeachment proceedings on Monday against the parliamentary speaker in an attempt to destabilize President Abdullah Yameen. This after allying with the president's powerful half-brother Maumoon Abdul Gayoom. Exiled opposition leader Mohammad Nasheed announced plans to take control of the 85-member parliament in a unity pact with Gayoom, who retains influence over the party he once led, but it is unclear whether it will be strong enough to secure the impeachment. Iraqi forces attacked militant positions around West Mosul's Al-Nouri mosque with helicopter strikes and exchanged heavy gun and rocket fire. This is the place where Islamic State leader Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi declared a caliphate nearly 3 years ago. The forces are attempting to dislodge the Islamic State from Mosul's old city, where fleeing residents say militants are hiding among the civilian population. That's it on this newscast. Have a good evening.